Newt Gingrich, and then there's the Rockefeller Republican, and that's Mitt Romney. That battle's been going on for many, many years, Megan, where you've had the Rockefeller Republicans and the conservative or Reagan Republicans, as they were dubbed back in the 1970s and 1980s, if you will. And out of the two, Newt Gingrich would be that person. You're always going to find areas of disagreement with everybody. I mean, my goodness gracious, my father had nobody on his side when he stood before the wall and said, tear down this wall. The whole National Security Council was against my father. When he gave the Evil Empire speech at Notre Dame University, most of the people in his administration said, don't do it, don't do it, don't make anybody mad, don't make Mikhail Gorbachev or the Russians mad. But yet my father gave that speech. So sometimes you're fighting your own people to get things done, and you're watching sausage be made. It's how the sausage tasted at the end, not how it was made.
Right, but then it becomes more controversial if one of the people who said this sausage is disgusting and we're making it all the wrong way comes out later and says, I was an innovator on how to make the sausage, and the history doesn't support it. That's what Gingrich's critics are saying. Let me just tee it up for you, and we should point out that you've endorsed Newt Gingrich. So. This guy named Elliott Abrams, who was an assistant secretary of state under your dad and was also in Congress back under your father. He's come out with a scathing piece in National Review online and says Gingrich, his claims about, quote, helping to defeat the Soviet empire with your dad are totally baseless. And I just want to show the viewers some of the quotes that appear in Mr. Abrams' piece. He says, quote, he's quoting Newt Gingrich, okay? He says, Gingrich said, measured against the scale and momentum of the Soviet empire's challenge, the Reagan administration has failed, is failing, and without a dramatic change in strategy will continue to fail. President Reagan is clearly failing. Goes on to say that your dad's efforts against the communists in the Third World were, quote, pathetically incompetent. Said his policy was marked by, quote, impotence and incompetence, and talked about his meeting with Gorbachev on arms control as, quote, the most dangerous summit for the West since Adolf Hitler met with Neville Chamberlain in 1938 in Munich. His point is, when your dad needed support on a critical issue that was controversial, Gingrich was not only not supportive, but he was harshly critical and made it tougher for your dad.
Well, you know, my father would say to that, Megan, well, when I was a child, I spake as a child. Newt Gingrich learned a lot since then, as everybody did. There are people, Newt, with my father on cases, against my father on cases. When it came to the Soviet Union, there was more people, in fact, in his administration that were not supportive of where he was going with it because they didn't truly understand it until, of course, the end. And you're going to find those things. You're going to find Elliott Abrams. Did he agree with the Berlin Wall speech? Probably not. Did he agree with Ronald Reagan walking away from Reykjavik?
We're missing each other because Gingrich is. It's fine if Gingrich disagreed with Reagan. The question is whether his current claims.
Always disagreeing.
But wait. But we're arguing apples and oranges because it's fine. I mean, lots of presidents have their policies disagreed with, even by those in their same party. But Gingrich is coming out now and saying that he's a Reagan guy and made this claim, we helped defeat the Soviet empire, and has linked himself to your dad, saying, I helped lead the effort to defeat communism in the Congress, and so on. And now you have guys who worked under your dad saying, that's not true. He was actually one of the guys who was on the other side. Elliott Abrams in his piece comes out and says, Michael, he says, first of all, he wasn't a visionary because he didn't see that the Soviet Union was beginning to collapse. And then he says the policies he thought were so weak and pathetic wound up working. Can you speak to that? But
then you have other columns. Craig Shirley has another column. Well, again, it's like sitting in a room with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all looking at the same guy, coming from a different angle about what's going on. And you're right. But Craig Shirley writes other columns about Newt Gingrich, in fact, being there and being supportive. You can go tit for tat, tit for tat. But the bottom line is he was there. And where was Mitt Romney? Mitt Romney was with Paul Tsongas. That's where Mitt Romney was. At least Newt Gingrich was, in fact, there. He was involved. Did he make mistakes? Absolutely. Did he do things that were very right? Yes. But I'd like to look at the fact, where was he in the 1990s? Why has the Congress today got Republicans in leadership? Because it all started in the 1990s with Newt Gingrich, in fact, following the Reagan Revolution. And even Nancy Reagan in 1995 passed the mantle to, in fact, Newt Gingrich and the Republicans because of the 104th Congress. So, again, you can find people on one side and people on the other side. But this is what my father really talked about also, is the fact this politics of self-destruction that's going on in the 11th Commandment. And I think that this is ultimately what really could ultimately hurt the Republican Party and the nominee in this next election.
Yeah. Michael Reagan, it's so fun talking to you. You always have such an interesting perspective. And you were the perfect guest for this segment, given your endorsement and your obvious status as the late president's son. Thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Thank you.